You wake up every single morning feeling like something is off. You're exhausted, not just physically, but mentally, like drained to the bone. You second-guess everything you say. You walk on eggshells around someone who's supposed to love you, and somehow, you always end up being the problem. Here's the thing. You're not going crazy. You're not being too sensitive, and you are definitely not the problem. You might be in the middle of a narcissistic relationship, and you don't even know it yet. Stay with me, because today I'm breaking down 7 signs a narcissist is slowly destroying you, with real-life examples that are going to hit way closer to home than you expect. Let's get into it. Sign number 1. You've lost your sense of self. Let me ask you something real quick. Who were you before this relationship? What did you love doing? What were your opinions, your goals, your personality? Because one of the first things a narcissist does is they slowly chip away at your identity. It starts small. They mock your hobbies. They dismiss your opinions. They make fun of the things you're passionate about, but always disguised as a joke. Over time, you stop doing the things you love. You start molding yourself around their preferences just to keep the peace. Psychologists call this identity erosion, and it's one of the most brutal forms of psychological abuse because it's completely invisible. Let me give you a real example of this. Sarah used to paint every weekend. It was her thing, her outlet, her peace. But her boyfriend kept making little comments.
That is kind of a waste of time, don't you think? You're not actually good enough to do anything with it.
At first, she laughed it off, but 6 months in, the canvases were in the closet collecting dust. She told herself she just lost interest. She didn't. She was conditioned to give it up. If you honestly can't remember the last time you did something just for you, that's not a coincidence. That's a red flag. Sign number 2. You're constantly apologizing. For nothing. Raise your hand if you've said, "I'm sorry," more times than you can count, and you don't even fully understand what you did wrong. This is called manufactured guilt, and narcissists are masters at it. Here's how it works. They do something hurtful. You call it out. Suddenly, the script flips, and somehow you're the one who's being too emotional, too dramatic, or always starting stuff. This is gaslighting in its purest form. And it's not just manipulation, it's psychological warfare. You start pre-apologizing. You walk into conversations already defensive. You bend over backwards trying to prevent their reaction instead of living your actual life. Let's understand this with a real-life example. Marcus came home late from work because of a last-minute meeting. His girlfriend exploded. He tried to explain. She said he never thinks about her feelings and always does this. Within 10 minutes, Marcus was the one apologizing. Not just for being late, but for always making her feel unimportant. He genuinely believed he was the problem. He wasn't. He'd just been trained to absorb blame that wasn't his. That constant state of hypervigilance, that's not love. That's a trauma response. Sign number 3. They've isolated you from your support system. This one is sneaky. Like, really sneaky. A narcissist doesn't come out and say, "Stop talking to your friends." That would be too obvious. Instead, they plant seeds of doubt. "I don't know, your best friend seems kind of fake to me. Your family never really supported you the way I do." Every time you hang out with them, you come back acting different. Little by little, you start pulling away from your people. And before you know it, the only person you have left is them. This isn't an accident. It's a calculated power move. Let's understand this with an example. Jessica and her college best friend had been inseparable for 8 years. But after Jessica started dating her new boyfriend, he would get moody every time she made plans with her friend. He'd say things like, "She's always been a bad influence on you," or, "I feel like you choose her over me." To avoid the conflict, Jessica started canceling plans. Then she stopped making plans altogether. 2 years later, she hadn't spoken to her best friend in months, and the only person she had to turn to was the man who engineered her loneliness. Social isolation is one of the biggest warning signs of an abusive dynamic, and you often don't clock it until you look around and realize you've ghosted basically everyone who loved you. Sign number 4. Your achievements never feel like enough. You got a promotion? Cool. They somehow made it about themselves. You lost weight? Nice. They pointed out what still needs work. You're proud of something? Great. They one-upped you before you could even finish your sentence. Narcissists cannot stand when the spotlight isn't on them. When you succeed, it threatens their ego in a deep, deep way. So they do what's called minimizing and deflecting. They downplay your wins, take credit for them, or immediately redirect the conversation back to themselves. Let me give you a real example of this. Derek finally got accepted into his dream grad program. He called his dad, a classic covert narcissist, to share the news. His dad's response? Oh, that's nice. You know, when I was your age, I had already started my own business. You always take the safe route. Just like that, Derek's biggest accomplishment was turned into a comparison he couldn't win. He stopped calling his dad with good news. Eventually, he stopped feeling like his wins were worth celebrating at all. That's not humility. That's conditioning. And over time, it hollows you out. Sign number 5. You feel like you're always the crazy one. Let me paint you a picture. You bring up something that genuinely hurt you. A normal, reasonable conversation. But somehow, 20 minutes later, you're the one crying, and they're sitting there calm as a cucumber telling you that you're overreacting, that you always do this, and that you need help. Sound familiar? This is gaslighting, and it is one of the most psychologically damaging things one human being can do to another. Gaslighting makes you question your own reality, your memory, your emotions, your perception. Let's understand this with an example. Priya clearly remembered her husband saying he'd be home by 7 for their anniversary dinner. He showed up at 10. When she brought it up, he looked at her like she was insane. I never said 7. I said I'd be home when I'm done. You always twist my words. She pulled out her phone to show him the text, and he said, "You need to stop keeping score. That's why we have problems." By the end of the night, Priya was apologizing for ruining their anniversary. She started keeping a journal just to verify her own memories, because she genuinely couldn't trust herself anymore. The clinical term is cognitive dissonance, when your gut says something is wrong, but the person you trust most keeps telling you your gut is broken. If you feel like you're losing your mind in this relationship, you're not. Someone is making you feel that way, on purpose. Sign number 6. There's a hot and cold cycle that's got you hooked. Okay, this one is where the psychology gets really deep. One day, they're the most loving, attentive, charming person you've ever met. You feel like the luckiest person alive. The next day? Cold, distant, cruel. Like a completely different person walked into the room. And you spend all your energy trying to get back to the good version of them. This is called intermittent reinforcement, and it is, psychologically speaking, one of the most addictive behavioral patterns in existence. It's the same mechanism behind slot machines. You keep pulling the lever because sometimes you win. Let's understand this with an example. For the first 3 months, Tyler was everything Lauren had ever wanted. Flowers, love letters, "You're the one," texts at 2 a.m. Then, out of nowhere, he went cold, ignored her for days. No explanation. When she finally got through to him, he acted like nothing happened and was sweet again. She was so relieved to have him back that she never even addressed what happened. This cycle repeated every week, and every time he came back warm, she felt more attached than before, because the relief hit like a drug. She wasn't falling in love. She was falling into a trap her nervous system couldn't escape. This is the core mechanism behind trauma bonding. You're not weak. You're not stupid. Your brain has been chemically conditioned to stay. Sign number 7. Your mental and physical health is tanking. This is the one people don't talk about enough. Narcissistic abuse doesn't just hurt your feelings, it literally rewires your nervous system. Chronic exposure to manipulation, gaslighting, and emotional abuse keeps your body locked in fight-or-flight mode. And long-term stress like that causes very real, very physical damage. We're talking anxiety, depression, trouble sleeping, headaches, gut issues, chronic fatigue. Psychologists have identified a specific condition, narcissistic abuse syndrome, with symptoms that closely overlap with complex PTSD. Let's understand this with an example. Before her marriage, Angela was the most social person in her friend group. Bubbly, confident, always the one making plans. 3 years into her marriage to a covert narcissist, she had developed severe anxiety. She couldn't sleep without a racing heart. Her doctor found she had stress-related IBS. She started having panic attacks before her husband came home from work, her body going into survival mode just anticipating the interaction. Her therapist eventually told her, "Your nervous system has been in crisis mode for so long, it forgot what calm feels like. That's not anxiety disorder. That's abuse response." So if you've been feeling low-key anxious all the time, like something bad is always about to happen, that's called hypervigilance. Your body is keeping the score, and it's trying to warn you. So there you have it. 7 signs a narcissist is slowly destroying you, often without you even realizing it's happening. Now let me be real with you for a second. If you recognized yourself in even 2 or 3 of these examples, please don't brush that off. Don't tell yourself you're probably overthinking it. Your feelings are valid, your experiences are real, and you deserve a relationship, any relationship, where you feel safe, seen, and respected. The first step is awareness, and you just took it. If this video hit home for you, share it with someone who needs to hear this. It might literally be the most important thing they watch today. Drop a comment below. I read every single one. And tell me, which sign hit closest to home for you? Like, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care of yourselves. Seriously.